Welcome to Tea Time with Liz. Come on in. I am super excited tonight. I have an amazing guest. We are doing part two to the value of life shifts. I am super excited to get into this tea tonight. But of course, before we do, we need you to go ahead and like, share, even subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not. You will find us on Tea Time with Liz there. Also, you want to follow us, like I said, on Facebook and IG, where you can get all the good tea throughout the week. We have some amazing new things that I've been launching out. And lastly, if you haven't seen, we got the new branding, but also a new podcast. So if you can't catch the live, you can always go back to these lovely platforms and listen to the tea on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Google Podcast, and Music, Amazon Music. So you can catch the tea anywhere. All right, y'all. So definitely make sure you are tuned in to that. But that is really all the announcements I have. I'm excited for next month's topic. I'm going to contribute to all my PKs out there, do a tribute to them. And we're going to talk about self-worth as a PK. It's not easy being a pastor's child, a preacher's child, a minister's child, wherever you lie. And so we definitely need to talk about self-worth from those perspectives. So I have two amazing guests that will be joining me next month as we discuss self-worth from a PK perspective. So, but otherwise, tonight, like I said, we are going to get into some good tea with my special guest. She is a sister, she's a friend. We have grown to work together, loved each other, and just have found a divine connection. And she has so much wisdom. So I'm super excited. I'll let her even share more of her life shifts as we talk, and she gives us a little bit more about herself. But other than I do want to bring up Miss Jamie Oats. Hello,
Hey,
ma'am. Welcome to Tea Time.
I'm so honored to be here. Your branding looks great. I'm excited.
Thank you,
Yes,
thank you,
ma'am,
thank
we're doing
you.
it.
Yes,
We're doing
we are definitely making some new moves here on Tea Time with Liz. So I'm excited. I'm excited. So like I said, thank you for joining us here on Tea Time. But tell us a little bit more about who Jamie is.
Okay. Well, my name is Jamie Oates. I am 33 years old. I reside in San Diego, California. I am currently a minister. I'm an entrepreneur. I also work full time. A friend. I love to shop. I don't know.
Oh,
I've been active with youth and young adult ministry a good portion of my life. It's really where my passion is. So, yeah, I love to serve. Here I am.
awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. Like she said, she is an amazing entrepreneur. She also does graphics and so much more. So definitely follow her here on Facebook, on I'm sure IG. She's on all the social media platforms, and definitely connect with her in her business. But let's get into this good tea because it's going
Yeah.
to be some great tea tonight, right?
Yes, it
So
is.
tonight, as we always do, I throughout the season we're talking about self-worth. I always ask our guests, what does self-worth mean to you? So that is your first question. What is your definition of self-worth?
That's a very good question. I would say self worth is the ability to take yourself and add value to it,
Mm,
but rightfully esteem the value that you add.
okay.
I think, regardless of whether you value yourself or not, there is a degree of self worth. It could be low self worth, it could be high self worth. But I think it is the value. Like when you take a piece of old jewelry, right, to the store and you get it appraised, essentially you are appraising yourself and your value. So that is what self worth means to me.
That's good. I love that. And I love the example that you gave as as part of value, right? Like, because we should definitely value ourselves, obviously beyond what you used for an example, but
Oh, yeah.
but it puts it in a great perspective because we do value those things around us, but we are definitely more than that. So I love that. I definitely love that. So as we get into this topic tonight, what are some recent life shifts that you've experienced?
Well, I am a newlywed. I don't know. Can I still say that at 7 months? I don't know. It's less than a
Yes,
year. So
definitely.
I still
Yes,
say
you can definitely say that.
I am a newlywed. I think that that has been one of the biggest shifts of my life to date. There are some other things that are currently shifting. I have not yet shifted, but I'd say that would be probably the hugest shift of my life. And I think that, going into it, most young women like, oh, I want to get married and I know who I want to marry. I know how my wedding's, all that is cute. But I think that there is a level of identity shift that happens that I don't know that I fully was able to comprehend before I got married. So not only does your last name change, but your family dynamic changes, your role changes, your obligations change, what's required of you changes. And all that can be kind of overwhelming, to be honest with you.
Wow. So
Yeah.
it's more than just the wedding dress, the party, the invitations.
Girl, wait. Yes.
Oh, it's more than
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Okay. Definitely more than that. Okay, gotcha. I hope everybody's got that noted.
Oh, yes.
I want to ask a little bit more to that identity thing. So,
Yes.
what what was the shift? Like, was it you not thinking of yourself anymore and having to adapt to somebody else, or yeah, what was the identity revelation, I should say?
So, this is a little bit different from what someone would usually say getting married. I'll say this. My whole life, I have been a giver. I've been someone who loves to serve. I'm okay with putting someone before me. My husband knows this. He is the same way. That's why we work so well together. However, I would say when I got married, I had to understand, yes, there is a level of servitude there, but that is not your identity fully.
Mm,
I think that when people get married, sometimes we can lose ourselves in the title of wife, or for those who have children, the title of mother. For those who maybe are engaged, the title of fiance. And it's very easy to lose yourself in that identity. But what happens when, you know, your husband needs space and
mm,
he doesn't want you to serve him right now, or he just needs space. He doesn't want you in your face right
that's
now. You
no,
have
that's
to have a sense of self that understands who you are and what you require too in any relationship. And so I think this has been a season for me where now that the honeymoon phase is over, I'm coming back down to earth. The wedding is done, everything is wrapped up. And now it's like, okay, God, who am I in this new role? Who am I in this level? Other than a wife, other than, whatever else I am to anyone else. It's a time where I've really had to come to grips with who I am outside of even servitude, who he sees me as outside of that. So, um, yeah, I don't
wow.
know. Is that making sense?
Good. No, that makes perfect sense. And to be honest, like I'm so glad you said this, to be honest, because I mean, mostly women on this platform, but I know there are some men. So, we shout out to you both. But I think women have a complex image of, like you said, wife and girlfriend and all these different things, and that we're supposed to be like Velcro to this person, right? And
Mhm,
we, like you said, we can lose ourselves in those titles.
mhm,
But what happens when, you know, each other needs space? Do
mhm,
you know who you are enough? Can you stand strong enough? Can you not take it personal?
mhm.
And I think those are some things that you have to. That's why you have to be strong. Like marriage is not for the weak.
No, it is not. It is not. People say
Marriage
it,
is not
but
for the
girl.
weak. It isn't, and I'm speaking from a divorcee perspective.
Mhm.
I got
Right.
married very young. I got married at 20, so
Wow.
I definitely understand
Mhm.
because those were a lot of the things I failed in. So that's why I said I'm so glad that you said these things because I don't think we take those things into consideration. Like I said, we think about the partnership, but you also are an individual who
Mhm.
has to continue to live your life. And so you have to know who you are. So with that revelation, what what are some things that you're learning? Are you, what are some of the lessons that have caused you to, walk stronger as a wife?
Well, I'll say, and I'll kind of like throw something else on that. I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes sense, but so I'm going through a lot of shifts right now. And like I
Okay.
said, they're not all complete. So I can't quite put a label to them as of yet.
Hmm.
But it's really been a shift in my ability to be led all the way around,
Yeah.
not only by, my husband, who's an excellent leader. But me getting married at 33 years old, listen, I've been on my own for a minute, right? So I'm not
Right.
used to
Right.
somebody else calling the shots. And, I thank God for him because he's super collaborative, but at the end of the day, he is the head of his household. And so learning how to submit and be led there has shown me more about how to submit to God and be led by him.
Wow.
So that has been the parallel of my life. That's just like a small like instance that's caused me to understand a bigger principle.
Yeah.
And all the way around right now in my life, I'm going through a season where, and we talked about this, girl, we talked about this offline,
Yes.
but everything in my life that I thought would be, right, is not. Like the way I thought that the rest of this year would play out, psych, just kidding. God said I have another plan.
Whole nother.
And learning how to trust God in that process and be led by him. And not look at him like he's not a good leader because it's not going the way that I'm a very methodical person.
Right.
I like a plan. I stick to the plan. I see the plan through. The plan will work. I have contingencies in place. But what happens when God says, okay, that's great. I'm not going by any of your plans. Since you submitted to me, just like in my marriage, since I decided to submit to my husband, I now have the responsibility to trust the leadership that I've submitted to.
That's
And
good.
so this has been a season of learning how to trust the leadership of God and follow him.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about submission. Um,
You would go there.
let's talk about it because I think, first of all, that is a misconception.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I love the fact that you also got to see the revelation though between for you and God, and
Hmm.
not just, obviously just you and your husband, but how it all works together.
Hmm.
But let's talk about submission, just, even with you and God,
Yeah.
and knowing his plan for your life is not always what you, like you said, planned, right? Like, where did you figure out like the plan wasn't working the way you wanted it to? Like,
Okay, so let me see how much of this I can share without sharing it. Okay, cool. Let's try this. So God had been dealing with me for the majority of this year about submitting to the call on my life. I'll put
mm,
it like that, right? So
yeah,
submitting to the call on my life. Got that. That's great. God, I submit whatever you want me to do, even if it's dealing with things that I don't want to deal with. I think sometimes when we're called, it is a matter of once we get past the, oh no, I can't do it. And that's an ongoing process, obviously. Once we start to kind of like settle in it, sometimes it's not so much that, but it's that God, just like Jonah, I don't want to deal with these people. You
mm,
know what I mean? Or God, I'm not trying to, I just want to kind of like live this happy, non-complicated life in my business and, serve behind the camera at church and all those nice background things. But what happens when God calls you to the front and you've already submitted to whatever it is he's called you to do?
that's good.
You have to continue to submit. And the thing about submission is I love God because he's so wild. He's like, this is wild.
Yes.
He asked us to say yes.
Mhm.
And then we say, well, what's the question? He said, I'm just asking you to say yes.
That, oh my gosh. What?
You're like, well, what am I
Hang
saying?
on,
Yes, where we
hang
going?
on, that's too much tea. Too much. Hang on. Let
I
us
just said, say yes. Can you
listen.
say yes for me? Can
Wow.
you just say yes? I just
Wow.
need your yes. And
Wow.
when you say yes, you have said yes to the unknown. You have said yes. You have submitted to something that is not your plan because you don't know what that thing is, but you have submitted to trust the leadership of God. So I'm in a season of my life where God called for my yes. I told him, you know, won't even go back that far, but I told him, God, thank you for blessing me with this marriage. It's a long time coming. I appreciate you for this. Whatever you ask me to do, I will do. I have no reason to withhold anything from you now. 3 months in, he circled back. He said, remember what you said? And he called for my yes. So I gave him my yes. And now I'm on the roller coaster of, okay, this yes, I thought you said this thing would happen at this time, and I was okay with that. But what happens when that is not the way that it planned out? That is not the way that it panned out. Um, without kind of like giving what that thing is, because again, it's still not done.
Right.
It's almost a season of delay in which I have to trust the process that my yes will mean something, and that my yes, I have to trust the plan of God, if that makes sense. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling.
No, it's making perfect sense, and
Okay,
there's so much. Come on, hang on.
right.
She's flowing with the tea, y'all. She's flowing with the tea. We gotta take a moment here. Take a moment. All right. No, so I want to go back because let's talk about this yes thing for a second.
Yes.
And I find it so ironic. Here I go.
Mm-hmm.
That it's the same thing you have to do in marriage. Um, you say yes at the altar, not knowing what trials, tribulations, anything that
No
you're
idea.
experienced throughout the years in life, but you're committed
Mm-hmm.
to one another, to whatever happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so that goes back to what you were saying about how God says, I just want your yes. Are you going to commit to me and your calling and what I've purposed you for? And I find that a yes is so powerful. And to be honest, your yes is all you have. It's all you have. You like you said, you don't know what you're saying yes to because he hasn't revealed it all to you. But that's all I got. He
That's
just
all I got.
he just wanted my yes. So that's all I got. So, but like I said, I find it so ironic that you actually did it naturally, but then God asked you to do it spiritually.
And I'm just like literally seeing that right now. Thank you. I'm just, like the
Right?
connection is just happening right
It's,
here. So I
it's crazy, right? It's the tea. It's the
the
tea that's
tea.
pouring tonight. It's the tea. That's amazing. And but as you continue to talk, I do want to ask a question about the call, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what were some of your struggles, in that yes, though? Because I'm sure there was that reserved you, of what you're called to.
Okay. Well, since you asked, I will say that without sounding cliche, I
Mhm.
think that, one of the unfortunate, well, cliches in the church is church hurt, right? Like church trauma. That's really what it is. It's trauma.
Right.
And I think sometimes it's weaponized to paint the church in the light of something that it is not. Unfortunately, that verbiage is abused oftentimes.
Mm.
People who maybe just don't want to submit at all. Oh, church hurt this, that, or the other. But it's also a very real thing that happens, and trauma is a very real thing. And so, growing up, I did go through a lot of trauma at the church I grew up in. Had a lot of great opportunities, great experiences, but I had a lot of bad ones too. And so sometimes when I saw people in the light of what God has called me to, but I saw the arrogance in which they treated that opportunity, it made me not want to be a part of it.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It made me like, oh, well, that's not what I am. Right. And I think oftentimes instead of teaching people how to embrace the anointing that God has placed on their life, the way we handle it teaches them to have no part of it.
Mm.
Unfortunately, it teaches them a cautionary tale of, well, if you embrace and you say that you're this, then this is the image that's associated with it. And that's not you and that's not what you want. So you need to stay away from that thing. And unfortunately, that is somewhat of what I fell into. I fell into not even wanting to embrace the fact that I am a minister because, like, no, I've seen the way they act. That is not me. I am not trying to be,
And not today.
that's not me. I don't have time for it. I'm not with the shenanigans.
Right.
Going back to self worth, I think oftentimes, unfortunately, When you are elevated in a position of leadership, but you don't have a sense of self worth, you
Mm,
cling on to that elevation as your identity instead of rooting your identity in Christ. And so that's when we see a lot of corrupt leadership that values position over, the actual purpose that God has placed on them, because they identify with that because they have low self worth. They have nothing else to cling on to. And so that is what I saw growing up.
mhm,
And I did not want that. God
mm,
had to show me something different. He showed me men and women of God who were walking in authority in the right way, who had lives that mirrored the image of Christ. He showed me people who were doing it the right way, the sincere, true power of the anointing. He showed me people like you know what I mean? People like you who are authentically themselves and still they're able to walk more heavily in what God called them to do because they are themselves.
mm,
And it got to the point where every time I would see someone or something that identified with a part of what God had called me to, it pulled on my heart. It
mm.
pulled on my heart in such a way I couldn't ignore it. And so at the end of the day, I just kind of got tired,
Yeah.
tired of, you know, wondering what it would be like
Mm.
or what it could be or what more was there. There was a void. If I'm being honest, I did not feel fulfilled. And I was tired of being afraid. I was tired of caring.
Wow. Wow. That's good. That's so good. And you just I think you have to get to a place of I don't care, right?
Really, really do. And
Um
it's about denying yourself. It's about, at this point, I am learning to be so dead to myself, dying daily to the point where it doesn't, like, whatever I look like doing, whatever God called me to do, I don't really care because I'm walking in obedience. It's not about me. I don't care what anybody thinks of me at this point. I
that's
don't.
but I think we have to get there
Yeah.
because when it comes to the yes,
Yeah.
you gotta that's a big step because you can't explain things to people. You can't
Mhm.
give them direct answers. All you know is that you said a yes and you're going with it, right?
That's it.
And so this is God. This is who we serve. This is how
This is the God we serve.
there's no agenda. There's no 1, 2, 3 step. There's none of that. Like you just trust and you walk and you continue to grow closer to Him. And so, but I love how transparent that testimony was because I think we all struggle with comparing ourselves. But the most is the view of the church.
Yeah.
We definitely um, don't take those things into consideration. And we do allow those things that we see in other people stop us from doing what we're supposed to do for God.
Mhm.
But once again, God gets us to a place to where we're like, forget it. I can't fight no more. We'll do this. Let's just do it. And so you end up saying yes. So now that you've said yes to the call, you're learning some things through this life shift.
Mhm.
How has it affected your self-worth?
Man, that is a great question. I was just thinking about this the other day. Let's see. Trying to be careful with my words. There's just, there's so much going on in the body of Christ as a whole and all different parts of it.
Mm,
And, it seems like almost every other day we hear about something happening or, a leader falling or, a church separating or closing because of this, that, or the third. And as of late, where God has had me, He's had me praying for leadership and He's had me really observing leadership and what makes a good leader a good leader. And
mm,
so, in the midst of this shift, the way that this whole shift has affected my self worth is God is telling me, you have to have for where I'm taking you, I still don't know all of where He's taking me, right? I have to have such a strong sense of self worth that goes beyond anything that God could ever provide for me or any platform He could ever put me on, to
mhm,
where if that platform leaves me, I am still intact. And I
mm,
think, unfortunately, we see a lot of the times it's not always the case. It's so easy to kind of get built up on the platform that God places you and to be on it so long that you forget who you are outside of that platform, who
wow.
God has called you to be. Like, our ultimate calling is to serve and to love God and to love one another. Our
Amen.
ultimate calling, God did not say, I love the intercessor, or I love the evangelist, or I love the this. He said, I love Pastor Liz, I love Sister Jamie, whatever, right? Like he said, he loves us by name,
Yeah.
our name.
Yeah.
And so I think understanding that and understanding what he said about us is paramount in being able to shift in anything that he calls us to do.
That's
So
good.
that's kind of been where I am, is understanding that part of me.
It's in the name. There you have it. And and I love that you pointed that out because God does see us as just simple individuals. It's
Hmm.
not the title. And I think sometimes that can even scare us is
Yeah.
when we hold a title or we are offered a title, let me say it that way, that we can either go one way or another with it.
Yeah.
It can humble us or it can boost us to another level that, we don't even know who you are anymore, kind of a thing. And um, but remembering who you are just as an individual, that you're God's daughter, that the girl who loved the Lord way back when, like nothing's changed but the different servitude opportunities. You're
Mhm.
just once again serving. And so I love how humble that was, just to say it's just you are who you are.
I'm the one who was broken.
Wow.
I'm the one that God healed.
Yes.
I'm the one who came from a broken household and he
Yes.
came from abuse and came from hurt and low self esteem and low value, that God took and picked up and said, no, I've called you by name. I love you. You're precious to me. I'm that person. I'm the one who's grateful to God. You know, that's who I am. I'm the one he loves and he's chosen, that he decided to take time with, right?
Okay.
Like
Listen,
that's who I am.
held
And
you, held your hand, all of that.
listen, all of that. Imperfect me, that's who I am, right?
Mm,
But he still loves me. And I think as God continues to elevate, if that's the mind frame that we come from, remembering the core of who we are, then we'll be okay.
yeah,
Because we'll stay close to the heart of God.
yeah,
So
I love it. I love it. And that is like when you only see yourself and
mhm,
who you are, and like you said, all the things that you've been through, it not only shows a gratification for God's grace and mercy and all that He does, but it's a love. It's a
yeah,
love connection. It's
that is.
a love connection because I think that's the only reason why I said yes is
Mhm,
because of everything He's brought me through.
mhm.
It's the least I can do. I mean, and that's not even including the cross. I mean, not trying to
Bro, we haven't even gotten to the cross. Like we didn't even go
I
there.
mean, we haven't talked about the
Right.
cross. I mean, that's enough in itself, but to think about all those things, like you said, the brokenness, the tears,
Right.
like none of these people were there. Nobody seen you cry. No one, had to, deal with those days where you didn't have anything, like that was all you, but he was right there, even though he may not physically be there, but he emotionally, spiritually was enough to cover even naturally.
Right.
So that to me is amazing. I love that. I love that. Well, I could talk for days. See, you give me always get me going. But that's good. That is so good. Knowing how that affects your self-worth, but it's such a positive. That's one thing too I wanted to point out is that it didn't break you in a way of making you feel lower than what you were or unworthy, but it brought you to the right place
Mhm.
in the right time.
Right.
We'll leave it at
I'm
that.
not that person anymore. I'm the whole version of myself. So,
Come on.
yeah,
Say it one more time. The whole
the
version.
whole version.
The whole version. Okay. Listen. All right. That's so good. So with all this great tea, because it's so much tea, y'all, you're gonna definitely need to rewatch this, re-listen to it. But what are some tools or resources that have helped you um, along the way to say yes, to stay committed, to know that God has called you for such a time as this?
Honestly, like to be completely honest, it's been prayer. I have found so much value in just laying out before God and like really like not our weekly prayer night at church, right? Like more than just that, like actually of my own will and volition, taking time to quiet myself before God and just like really hear from Him, really be in a place to understand, okay, what I want, I can't hold so dearly. I'm going to hold it loosely and I need to know what you want. And then just being open enough to say, God, you know what? If this isn't your will, just shut it down. Like close the door, shut it down, move it. Don't even let me want it anymore. And
Mhm.
that's kind of kept me centered. I'll say good people, good people around you who you're able to kind of like share a little bit about what you're going through. You have helped me, being honest. You have been one of those people. I appreciate you for that.
Yes.
My husband has definitely been that person that kind of, the thing that he told me the other day, we were talking, and he said, in this season, you have to be actively patient. And that means you have to actively prepare for the things that God has called you to do, but not so active that you're moving ahead of His wheel. So just people to tell you things like that. Hey, it's a good one. Like the Lord said,
Listen,
I know it's
listen.
good things in Him. Uh,
Wow.
but things like that, the right words in the right season from the right people, has really, really helped me stay focused and
That's good.
encouraged in the season while I'm waiting.
Okay, so let's talk about that just a little bit because I really want to talk about your husband's quote, but we'll leave it. We'll leave it for him and give him credit for that. But that was amazing. But let's talk about your circle, the people around you. Now, you were able to, once again, heed to the people that you needed to heed to and the words that they were sharing. But has there been distractions of other people that have tried to confuse you or question anything?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. I think what I've learned in this season, and it's been, be honest with you, it's kind of been a lonely season because
Mm,
it's had to be that way.
right.
I've had to protect and hold so closely what God has shared with me that He's going to do, simply because I can't allow the opinions of others to influence the Word of God. I can't.
Yes.
Um, I can't allow for politics to be spoken over it in the sense that, well, so and so, if you're going to be working with them, you got, well, this and that, or, oh, girl, I'm gonna pray for you because I can't. I don't have time. I can't. You know what I mean? I know that God has rescued my mind from that mentality, and now that I'm over here, what God has promised and said is it's I revere it so much. It feels like a holy moment.
Mm,
It feels like such a sacred moment, a moment of purpose. I can't afford to get sidetracked with opinions of other people on what I might encounter or what I should do or how I should finesse the situation that God is bringing me into. Like, I can't afford for that. So
mhm.
it's been lonely. There's about three people that I can, legitimately speak to about this. And that's okay with me. I don't need much.
Okay. Okay. There's so much again. Oh my gosh. All right. So, no, this is good. Let's talk about the loneliness. I think that is
Yeah,
something we have to um, definitely pay attention to. And it's not that you chose to be lonely, but you know
right.
that what you're carrying requires you to be lonely. And it's so important, I think, because, like you said, you can't allow the politics, the opinions of other people, what they think it's going to be, to influence what God has given you. So how did you protect yourself from that? Like, how did you not offend them if you had to? I mean,
I think it's been so interesting. It's been a season of drifting, I'll say.
no, it's good.
It's been a season where um, things that are toxic to purpose for me have gradually drifted away, and I've had to let them. I know there were a few situations because I'm a pretty social person. I love people. I love hanging out with people. I love doing things. I love communication. But there's a part of me that cannot indulge in communication with everything and everybody. And in
Mhm.
this season, I think I've had to be okay with friendships that I've really, really enjoyed drifting. It gets to a point where sometimes, you text that person and it's just so dry. Like,
Find nothing else. Yes,
like, oh,
yes,
oh,
no,
well, I
no,
hope you're well. Like,
right, like,
that's,
okay,
and I'm going like, God, what is this?
what is
But you
happening?
know
Yeah,
what? I've had to be okay with it because God kind of had to show me the personality behind it, the conversation behind it, the mannerisms and the ways behind it. And it's not speaking, poorly of anybody. It's just they're not what my new season needs. And that's okay.
it's okay.
They're not what next needs. And we just have to be very protective over what is next. So
I mean, and I think it takes a self-discipline, does it not? Like,
it does.
because you have to be aware of those shifts. Once again, here we are talking about shifts. You have to
Shifts.
be aware of those shifts when God is trying to shift you to a place,
Hmm.
protect you, cover you, and knowing that these people cannot go with you, um, and not try to hang on to it.
Hmm.
Um, it honestly, it reminds me of my haircut I just recently got. I had
It's cute, girl. You working it all right?
um, but honestly, I didn't really intend for this to happen, but because there was so much dead hair, I had to find a different style to, to accumulate to the new. And
Hmm.
so, but if I would have tried to hang on to the dead hair, child, I look like a crazy person. But
Listen, and it would start breaking off, wouldn't it?
literally. And so,
Right.
it sometimes it's necessary for what? For you to grow, for you
Hmm.
to see a different you, to embrace a new. And so that to me is like, I mean, what you said was it's so relevant. You have to be okay with letting go,
Right.
in some of these life shifts. You have to be okay of even some self disciplines. You can't do everything like everybody else gets to do. You can't be like everybody else is. You have to, stay committed with your yes, because that's all. That's all you got.
That's all I have. Listen, I don't have much, my yes. My
Okay.
dad told me growing up, if you don't have your word, you don't have anything.
Wow, that's good.
And that translates to how we treat and speak to God. If we don't have our vow of commitment, then what do we have?
That's good.
What do we have to offer him? You know?
Words are everything. They
Yeah.
are. Words are everything. That's so good. All right. Once again, I hope y'all are writing these down. This is some good tea. Um, and one last thing that you mentioned too at the very end was that you don't need a lot of people. And I think sometimes we once again get the complex, especially when people are in the lamplight, that you need a whole entourage or you need a group of people. But would you say it's safe to say less is better? Less is more?
So
And
I'll say yes, but also what God showed me, and it's crazy how He works. As I started to allow people, the dead things to drift away, He started to put new people in my life. He started to put
mm,
people who actually belong there for this season, people who are at a different place, who have a different mind frame. I don't have to um, I don't want to say dumb myself down, but I don't have to pretend around them. I don't have to lessen the value of what God has placed on the inside of me. It's appreciated, it's celebrated. It isn't mocked. I'm not too much. I'm not too deep. These are a different caliber, a different level of people. And the other people, they're not bad. Their mind and priorities are just on something different.
right.
And that's where
No,
they are. That is their season.
that's so
And
good.
that's
That's so
okay,
good. Yes.
right? We're not going to say that they're not good people, that they're not quality people. They're
Exactly.
just not in the same category as where I am right now. And that's okay.
And that's okay. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you said it that way, because we can be like, oh, they the devil, this, that, and like finger,
Right. The
right?
devil is busy, girl. No, it's not the
Listen, like
devil.
that spirit, no, no. It's not.
Right.
It's
No.
just, some things are for a season and some are for a lifetime, as they say. But
Right.
you have
Right.
to know when that shift is and to be okay on both ends. I mean, because sometimes the shoe may be on the other foot. What if you're the person that has
Right.
to walk away? And,
Right.
or they chose to walk away from you. So you have to respect all sides of that, but it doesn't necessarily always have to be a dramatized breakup.
Oh my
It
God,
doesn't always have to be
so good
gossip
at
or whatever the case may be.
that.
Um,
Right.
it can definitely just be a mutual understanding, and you just continue on with life. So I thank you for even pointing that out. That's amazing. That is some good tea. Um, so w- through all this, I know you said recently you've discovered, the identity and, submitting to the yes, but um, what else have you discovered recently about your value?
That's another really good question. One of the things that I am learning to value are my differences. At
Mm,
something that I think, again, maybe cliche in some circles, but um, I think that for the things that God has called me to in the next season, He's going to need me to be exactly who I am.
mm,
And that is different. And He's taught me to value those things, like lean into those things, lean into those differences, be okay with that. I love those differences about you. I made them on purpose. I intentionally made you different,
right.
from the way you think to the way you speak to how you dress to what all those things that we think are just cosmetic or just small minor details. God was like,
Mm,
no, I chose you to be this way because there is a circle of people I want to reach with your differences. And
mm,
so for me, instead of seeing those as things that I need to adjust to fit into a box, God has seriously allowed me to see the worth behind those things and
mm.
just like lean into them even more.
That's
So
good.
that's
That's
another
good.
thing.
No, no, that's good. Like, I don't think we even, sometimes consider differences. Sometimes we're so busy trying to people please
Mhm.
that we don't take the time to see that there are just some things different. I don't agree, and it's okay. Once again, going back to the okay. If you don't get nothing else, it's okay. It's okay to discover some of these things and embrace them and walk in them. So
Mhm.
being different and knowing that um, sometimes people aren't going to agree with you. Sometimes people won't have the same faith level as you to see what you see, but it's okay.
It's okay. We're good
It's
here.
we are good. Okay, I'm sleeping as long as you're sleeping. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm
as long
living real good over here.
as my best life. So
Right.
no, I love that just embracing those your mentality of different and
Mhm.
and not being ashamed to stand on different at that.
Mhm.
So no, that's good. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, um, this has been some amazing tea,
Oh
Jamie. Seriously,
my God.
have dropped so many good things.
This was
You
fun.
all, please definitely be looking out for the podcast coming out tomorrow. And then also tag a friend, share with somebody, let them know what this tea was like tonight, because this was definitely something that we all can take a piece from and really utilize in our lives. But our last question, and I know it's going to be powerful. So, what advice, since we are coming to this end, what advice would you um, give to somebody who is going through a life shift?
Huh. That's a big question. I would say this: be okay with not knowing. Be very comfortable with not knowing exactly where you're headed. I do believe God will give you a general idea if you seek Him. However, the specific details, you're going to have to be okay with them shifting. You're going to have to be okay with uncertainty, and you're going to have to be humble enough to say, I don't know, but God, I trust you. I think oftentimes, well, let me just say for me, I've been very much so a know it all. Like I know where I'm headed. I know where I'm going. I'm not about to step out here and not, but in this season, I've had to humble myself before God and say, I do not know what this is going to end up like. I just know you gave me a directive. You gave me a direction to walk in and you gave me marching orders. I'm going to go that way until you tell me to go another way.
Mhm.
And whenever you decide to bring me to the fullness of the promise, I respect that. I'm just going to keep walking.
Wow.
So stay close to the heart of God so you don't walk anywhere strange that He's not calling you to walk. In the
Okay.
name of walking by faith, you end up out here looking weird, being weird.
All
You
the
got
way in left field, child. Come
over in left field,
back.
right?
Come back.
Careful. You got to stay close to the heart of God.
Definitely. Definitely.
But in all seriousness, staying close to the heart of God will allow you to have the kind of faith that God, even if this, doesn't go the way I think it's going to work, I'm still going to trust you because I know that all things work together for my good. I know there's a purpose, even in what is perceived failure. There's a purpose in, my plans being shifted and adjusted. So I think that's key.
So key. That's so key. Wow, I love this. Now I'm gonna ask a question. I usually don't ask a question to the advice, but it's great advice. It
Go
really
for
is.
it.
It's great advice. But I just want you to expound on, because I think this is something, especially for us women, because we're so. I hate to say it, we're so controlling. We need to know a lot of detail. We need to know, what's happening. But how did you find the peace to be okay with the unknown?
um Okay, let me try to make this as condensed as possible. Um, God actually allowed something to happen in my life. A couple of things to happen back to back to back. Me and my husband actually recently went to this conference in the middle of Palm Springs. I had booked a hotel. Promise this will answer your question. I had decided that I was just going to book a hotel because I get a discount. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. Are you okay with this hotel? Good. Okay, we're going to stay here. Me trying to take control of stuff, right? We got to the hotel. Hotel was trash. It's reputable brand. I won't say the brand, but it was reputable. We got there. It was garbage. I wanted to cry. My husband said, okay, 10 minutes. What do you want to do? You want to leave? You want to stay? I'll help you find another hotel for us. What do you want to do? Well, my plan originally was that hotel. I was like, okay, let's find another hotel. I don't think we can make this work. God's plan was much different than what I had set out to do. He blessed us with a super low, like I'm talking 70% off a hotel that was a 5-star hotel that we would have never thought to stay and pay. Like God just really hooked us up. And in that moment, it was a small thing, but the service we went through that night, the word basically, and it was Bishop Jason Nelson who spoke, was to throw your plans away because God's plans are much better than your plans. And He wants to do much more than you can ever do. And from that point on, everything that I had planned, even in the small things, it's like it just wouldn't work out. It wouldn't work out until I finally had to get the picture. Like God had to bring back to my mind that example that He gave and how it really worked out better than I could have ever imagined when my plan was foiled, when my plan was no more, right?
Yeah.
Another instance I won't go into detail about, but I was very disappointed with the outcome of a situation. I thought I knew what was going to happen. I thought there was an opportunity I would be able to pursue. And God said, it's not time for that yet. And I had to be okay with that. But that instance with the hotel, along with the word that night, gave me so much peace. And that even in my disappointment, even in my pain, even when I think I've messed things up, if I release my plan to God's will, He has a way of giving us much more than we could have ever done for ourselves.
So
And
much.
so when I get discouraged or I get confused or I get impatient, I go back to that revelation. I go back to that moment where, I mean, God gave us a private villa with like it was dope. It was so nice. But the principle of it is that God will give you things that are out of your reach for the moment if you would just lay your plans down and submit to His will.
Jesus.
So that's where I am with that.
Okay, I'm not gonna cry at the last few time.
Oh,
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, y'all. I don't
yeah,
know what else to say. This is amazing
He's
tea.
a good God.
It's really
He's a good God.
so amazing. Like, but that is so real. Like, it's just a matter of us submitting. It goes back to the submission that you were talking about earlier, and just letting go,
Mhm.
trusting and letting go,
Trust. Yeah.
instead of always trying to help and put a hand in. He just wants your yes. and he will direct you. He will give you the instructions on how to get there, where to go, who to talk to, whatever the case may be. So that was powerful. That, I mean, she dropped
And
them
I'm
out.
in the middle of it. Like, yeah, I still don't know. I still don't have clarity on everything.
Listen,
I'm in the
listen.
middle
If
of a
she
yes
only
right
in the
now.
middle and she already dropping bombs, Lord help us all. So,
Oh.
and so we are excited for you to see what this next season is going to bring. Thank you so much for being
Thank
so
you.
transparent tonight and
It's,
sharing so much wisdom on life shifts and just being able to see those, to be aware, but to also know how to handle um, those difficult places. So thank you all for tuning in with us. We will be back, like I said, next month with another tea time. But until then, we thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next time.